It's 6:25, June 6th, 1944. Lance Corporal Heinrich Severloh is readying his MG-42 as ships appear in the distance. He is just 20 years old. Less than a year ago, he was a farm boy cutting barley in the fields of Lower Saxony. Widerstandsnest 62 sits at the eastern edge of Easy Red sector. Below it, 300 meters of open tidal flat. No trees, no walls, no cover. The beach is a geometry problem, and Severloh's MG-42 is the solution. Bernhard Firking crouches at the edge of the pit, the field telephone pressed tight to his ear. Through his binoculars, he watches the massive fleet of ships. He calls the target coordinates to the artillery battery behind the ridge.
Was auch immer von diesen Booten herunterkommt, nichts erreicht den Kieswall. Nichts!
Severloh nods as he checks the loading mechanism. 250 rounds, coiled into the ammunition can like a brass-colored snake. The MG-42 cycles at 1,200 rounds per minute, a sound less like gunfire and more like industrial machinery tearing itself apart. Running non-stop for more than 60 seconds makes the steel bend and twist from its own intense heat. Changing to a spare tube takes just 11 seconds when everything is calm. He has practiced the swap 30 times. He has never tried it while enemies are firing back at him. The shapes on the horizon are resolving into shapes with edges now. Flat-bottomed, gray-hulled, bouncing hard in the chop. LCVP Higgins boats, dozens of them, then scores, then too many to count, churning toward Easy Red in ragged assault lines. The beach looks quiet. Smoke from the heavy shelling by the ships is still drifting and settling. In 4 minutes, his front gate will lower. Back in the Tobruk position, Severloh presses his eye to the sight. The shapes of the boats now fill the entire view. Here is what the historians will spend decades trying to understand. Before the position is finally overrun, the man behind this single gun will have fired, by his own account, 12,000 machine gun rounds, allegedly shooting between 1,000 and 2,000 soldiers. Many American veterans who survived that day will call him the Beast of Omaha. Severloh will not speak of this day for 50 years. When he finally does, he will call it a nightmare. The first Higgins boat's ramp drops into the surf. The ramp hits the water, and the men of the 16th Infantry pour forward into a world that has already decided to kill them. The D.D. Shermans that were supposed to be here aren't. 27 of the 32 duplex drive Shermans launched for the eastern Omaha sector sank before they could reach shore. The armor that was supposed to suppress WN-62 is sitting on the seabed. The naval bombardment lifted 6 minutes ago, on schedule. Soldiers are within range for Severloh. Severloh squeezes the trigger. A sound like a bedsheet being ripped at 1,200 times per second. A mechanical shriek that Severloh will hear in his sleep for the rest of his life. 10 miles offshore, aboard the heavy cruiser USS Augusta, General Omar Bradley stands over a chart table and reads a message that cannot be correct. He reads it again. The reports coming in from Easy Red are not battle reports. They are casualty lists with no tactical content attached. Elements of the 16th Infantry, pinned, unable to move, suffering. Whole companies of the 116th RCT to the west, gone. The beach is not a beachhead. The beach is an abattoir, and the tide is still coming in. Bradley's aide sets a second message on the chart, then a third. Bradley does not raise his voice. He does not slam his fist. He stares at the coastline through the Augusta's rain-streaked windows and performs, silently, the mathematics of catastrophe. He tells his aide to get General Gero on the line. Back on the bluff, the cordite smoke has thickened into a permanent haze that sits over Easy Red like a low ceiling. Severloh cannot see the waterline clearly anymore. He focuses on the shapes, a dark mass separating from a darker mass, movement where there should be stillness, the pale geometry of a man trying to crawl. His right eye is streaming, not tears. The gas and grit thrown back by 7 a.m.'s sustained fire has abraded the cornea raw. He keeps it open by will alone, blinking hard every few seconds, refocusing, finding the next shape. The MG-42 is running hot again. And 40 meters to the left of the Tobruk position, the world suddenly comes apart. From the ships at sea, one perfectly placed moment affects the second position at WWII-62. Firking is at Severloh's shoulder instantly.
Verdammt! Die zweite Stellung ist weg! Severloh, links schwenken und Feuer!
The stretch of beach to the east that the second position had been watching, 200 meters, is now open and unguarded. Severloh shifts left and begins again. In the ruins of the secondary position, nothing moves. Easy Red's eastern edge is briefly quiet. Then, the first American soldiers rise from the surf at the waterline. By sheer deadly luck, they've stumbled into the one fatal gap the German guns have stopped covering. They don't understand the sudden eerie silence, but they push forward anyway. Severloh finds them. The gun turns to the left. The quiet ends. He is now covering an arc designed for 2 gun crews. His ammunition consumption doubles. He can feel the ammunition shrinking. Aboard the Augusta, the line to Gero crackles open. Bradley picks up the handset. His jaw is set. His eyes don't leave the chart. He has not given the order yet. But his hand is on the phone, and the phone is connected to a decision that would reshape the entire war. Colonel George Taylor comes ashore at Easy Red the way a man walks into a fire, with full knowledge of what he is walking into, and walking in anyway. And immediately a man grabs his arm, a sergeant without a helmet, eyes that have seen too much. Taylor pulls free. He walks up the beach. He walks past the shingle bank where many men are. He walks until he is standing among them. He doesn't shout. He doesn't need to.
2 kinds of people are staying on this beach. The dead and those who are going to die. Now let's get the hell out of here.
He raises his M1 toward the bluff and starts walking. In the Tobruk pit, Severloh sees the movement before he understands what it means. Small groups, 4 men, 6 men, 8, breaking from the shingle wall and crawling east toward the draws at the base of the bluff. Not charging, not running, crawling. Flat to the ground, using what was left as terrain. He traverses the MG-42, tracks the nearest group, depresses the barrel. The gun will not go further down. The Tobruk pit is set into the bluff face at an elevation that dominates the beach perfectly. 300 meters of open killing ground, every centimeter of it covered. At the base of the bluff, directly below the position, there is a dead zone. A band of ground the MG-42 cannot physically reach. The men crawling toward it don't know this. They have found the blind spot the way water finds a crack, not by intelligence, but by desperate, relentless effort. Severloh works at the mount. It will not move. When he rises again, the first group has reached the base of the bluff. On the bluff face, a private from Ohio presses himself against the chalk and looks up. The heavy blasts above him thunder outward, soaring over his head toward the shore below. He cannot be reached here. He doesn't understand why. His hands are shaking so badly he can barely grip the shale. He starts climbing. Aboard the Augusta, Bradley's aide appears at his shoulder. A new report. Fragmentary, unconfirmed, but the words are there. Unmistakable. Men off the beach, moving on the bluff. Bradley reads it once. The call to Gero is over. The retreat order that would have reshaped the war dies in the static of an unfinished transmission. Omaha Beach will not be abandoned. The gun that has held Easy Red for 4 hours cannot hold the ground directly beneath its own position. His hands are not shaking anymore. They stopped shaking somewhere around the 4th frantic change. Below him, a second group reaches the bluff base. Then a third. The signal to pull back arrives late in the morning. Firking, completely exhausted, issues the instruction just before he is suddenly lost to them. Severloh shifts his pack across his back, hoists the large iron unit from the stand, the cylinder still radiating heat he can feel through his sleeve, and moves. He does not look back at the beat. Behind him, the coast is still churning. The tide has come in fully now, narrowing the shore, bringing the arrivals and the heavy equipment together at the water's edge. The transport vessels are still arriving. The next groups, the builders, the guides, pulling ashore into a beach that has demanded more sheer effort in one morning than any planner's worst calculation. But the groups are moving. Up the slopes, past the barriers, onto the high ground that the lower walls could not maintain against geometry and sheer will and one man's absolute refusal to accept the mathematics of staying still. Aboard the Augusta, Bradley folds the latest report and hands it to his aide without a word. Omaha is not won. It will not be won cleanly, or quickly, or cheaply, but it will be won. The follow-on forces will land on schedule. The gap between Utah and the British beaches will close. The retreat contingency that existed for a critical window that morning as a real and considered possibility will be filed nowhere, recorded in no official dispatch, acknowledged only decades later in Bradley's own memoir as the hardest moment of his war. He was one agonizing decision away from abandoning the western anchor of the greatest amphibious invasion in human history. One position, one man, one morning. Heinrich Severloh survived the war. He returned to Lower Saxony, to the farm near Metzingen in the Lüneburg Heath, to the rhythms of harvest and weather, and the slow passage of peacetime years. He did not speak of June 6th, not to his family, not to his neighbors, not to the veterans organizations that began in the 1950s to hold their cautious reunions. He was a farmer. He tended his fields. He did not discuss Omaha Beach for 50 years. When he finally spoke, in interviews and then in a memoir, he described the morning with the flat precision of a man who has rehearsed the telling until the emotion is somewhere underneath the words rather than in them. He described the heavy machinery, the shapes in the distance that he trained himself not to look at too closely. He described waking at night to a sound, not a crash, not a voice, the sound of the endless repetition, the unbroken rhythm, the overwhelming roar of a morning that demanded the unimaginable, leaving him carrying the weight of every single moment for the rest of his life. He did not call himself the Beast of Omaha. He did not use the word hero. He used the word nightmare. He said it quietly, the way a man says a word he has lived inside for 5 decades and still cannot fully find the edges of. The Normandy American Cemetery sits above Easy Red on the same bluff that Severloh fired from. 9,388 graves, white crosses and stars of David in perfect, silent rows, facing west toward a country that sent them east and never got them back. The sea below is calm today. It lies quiet now, as if the Atlantic itself has forgotten. It does not look like a place where one man behind one gun nearly broke the war. If a single position nearly stopped D-Day from above, you need to see what nearly stopped it from below the surface. 2 secret British submarines, 4 men, and 48 hours lying on the seabed in total silence, waiting to guide 5,000 ships onto the right beach. That's the Operation Gambit episode, right here on SNAFU. Watch it next.